What's going on, everyone? This is Uche Joku, and welcome to the Sneaker Principle Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be continuing my telling of my journey from the classroom to administration. In the last episode, I spoke to you about how I became a high school dean, and if you heard that episode, it was pretty interesting. It was pretty instantaneous. But now, my journey from dean to assistant principal was a lot more involved. So in this episode, I'm going to take you through my journey, and hopefully, at the end of it, you will get something out of it that can support your thinking and how you want to project yourself from where you are right now to where you want to be, whether that's being a dean, assistant principal, and hopefully principal as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start this episode.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.
So again, welcome everyone. If you're joining me for this episode, first of all, I want to thank you. And of course, I want to ask you, as I always do, please subscribe, like, check the notification bell so that whenever I put out a new episode on YouTube, you are notified. And again, for those of you who listen to me via podcasts, if you're on Apple Podcasts, Google, or the plethora of platforms that are out there, thank you so much. And please check out the YouTube channel as well. That's under Uche Joku, the Sneaker Principal. And hopefully you'll find content there to really support your journey, especially in education, moving towards wherever you want to be in this space, whether it's an administrator or whatever that thing may be. So now, how did I become an assistant principal? It's a complicated story, but I'm going to do my best to truncate it. So this episode doesn't run, for hours and hours and hours. So as you know from the previous episode, I became a dean pretty much day one as a teacher, and I was dean at my first school, which was a high school. I was there for 2 years, and then things got complicated with the new principal who came in, so I left that school, went to another school where which was now a middle school where I was dean at, and I was there for a year. And please do know and trust that my intention was to be there for as long as possible. But I was there for a year because the principal who had hired me had been promoted to the role of an executive principal, and that role required that role was really based on their competency and ability to really move schools forward. So upon getting this role, I was asked by principal at the time to join him at his new assignment. And this was going to be a turnaround job. This school was a school that on paper should be doing really well, but it's going through some struggles. And he asked me to be part of that turnaround team. So even though he brought me on as dean at that particular school, now I was joining him at his next assignment, which ended up being literally the following year. So I took on that role, and then to sweeten the pie with me transitioning with him and another staff member to that school, he offered me. He offered me. It wasn't an offer, but it did sweeten the pie though. He selected me to be his ally in the Confellows program, which is a fellowship done through Teachers College, Columbia University. And I knew nothing about the program, but the program is really about recognizing distinguished principals in New York City, and now it's actually expanded itself throughout the country. And it involves coaching and professional development for those principals, and at Teachers College, and it's a phenomenal program. And part of the requirements of that program is that principal who's a fellow identifies an ally, someone who will go through the program with them, that has the potential of being a school leader themselves one day. And he picked me, so it was a great honor to be picked. And of course, him asking me to join him at his new school, I'm going to say yes, of course. So I went on to join him at this school, and this was 2009, 2010. So I arrived at that school and ended up being at that school for 4 years actually. And part of that 4 years was was me first joining him at that school as the dean, and I was there as the dean, and what was interesting is at that moment in time I was not thinking about being an assistant principal. I just knew that here, listen, I'd done 2 years as a dean at one school, a dean at another school. Then here I am with my principal at a third school as the dean, and then I'm not only that, I'm an ally for this program that I didn't know much about this program, but when I got there, I won't lie to you, I was intimidated. Listen, I was shaking in my boots because I got there and I saw all these principals who were arguably some of the best principals in New York City at this fellowship at Columbia University, Ivy League. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing here? Because just 3 years ago, I was 3 years ago, I was in California trying to figure out my life. And here I am now, 3 years later, into my going into my fourth year in as an educator in New York City. And those of you who heard my first episode remember why I came to New York City. I was going to do the New York City Teaching Fellows Program. I was going to do the 2-year commitment and then take my butt to law school. But now here I am in my fourth year and I'm still in New York City. So pretty much law school was no longer on the table because I found what I loved. I loved what I did. I never thought I would love working in a school, being a quasi-administrator, as a dean, and doing all these things to support my students and teachers in the building. And now here I am in my fourth year. I'm an ally to this fellowship program at Teachers College, Columbia University, and I'm getting professional development, and I'm given space to speak and share my thoughts and my ideas as a teacher leader, because here in New York City, as a dean, you're still on the teacher line, even though you're quasi-administrative, but you're still on the teacher line. So I was pretty much a teacher leader, sharing my ideas and my thoughts and the things that I do in my role as a dean. And I had professors and these intellectuals at Teachers College like looking at me like, wow, this young man is saying such profound things. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm just saying what I do every day. And I did that fellowship with my principal, John, and it was a 1-year commitment for that fellowship. So now going into my second year at my third school, where I'm there with the executive principal, John, we're there and finished the first year, got some accolades, made some really great moves for the school. The school had some issues behaviorally, some issues instructionally, and we made an incredible turnaround. And it's funny because there was an article written. I don't know if I can pull it up right now. Let me see if I can pull up this article. Let me the school I was at, actually, Bronx Early College Academy was the name of the school. And let me see, New York Post, I believe, improved. So I don't know if I can still find that article. Those articles written in the New York Post. Yes, here it is. This article here is from, let me shift the screen here out of the way. So this was June of 2009. Is this correct? 2009. Yeah, 2009. And it says here, I'm not mentioning the article, but my school is mentioned in the article, so I'm definitely proud of this, because I know I was part of that team there. And it says here, the title is Head of the Class, blah, blah, among the major items, blah, blah. At that point in time, the chancellor was Joel Klein. And why can't I find okay, here it goes. So they recognize the schools that made gains that year. So it says several. It says here in the article, several of the biggest gainers and losers in surveys compared to last year were related in changes in leadership, including the most improved school in the city, Bronx Early College Academy for Teaching and Learning, which got a new principal in September. So we had the best improvement in the school surveys in at that point in time, and this was June of. Why does this? Wait a minute. How come this date seems wrong to me? So my first school I was at was I was there from 2005, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 10. This date is wrong. It's very, very wrong. But yeah, because I'm like, no, this couldn't have been because okay, check this out. This was throwing me off right now because it's saying here June. This article was written June 25th, 2009. My first year was 2005, 2006. Second year, 2006, 2007. Second year, the next year, 7, 8. Oh, it is right. It is right. 8, 9. So this was, so that was the year. Man, my math is off. Old age. My apologies. So again, I was very proud of what we did in the school. And I remember at the end of that fellowship, so this is going into at that spring, that spring, I received an email saying, hey, here's a program at Columbia University, the Summer Principals Academy. And I saw the email and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I told John about it. I was like, hey John, this is pretty interesting. And he was like, so how come you're not applying? I'm like, me apply? Do you know what my GPA was from undergrad at University of Rochester? Yes, I went to one of the best schools in the country, but I had one of the worst GPAs in the country at the same time. And he says, no, you should apply for this, but you didn't receive this by accident. Mind you, you were a fellow. You were an ally. I was a fellow, and people saw what you've done, and you did not receive that email by accident. And I was like, wait a minute. So I got an email to apply to the Summer Principals Academy, which is a 2-year program that is it 2 years? No, I'm sorry. It's 18 months. 18-month program that will pretty much over the course of 2 summers and year-long instruction, internship and projects, but 2 summers of intense instruction at Teachers College, Columbia University, will prepare you for a principalship. You would walk out with a master's degree in education leadership, and as well as the preparation to sit for the license to get your SBL. At that point in time, the school building leaders license for New York State to be a principal. And trust me, my head was spinning. I was like, how the heck did this happen? Here I am just trying to be a dean. I become an ally for my principal, John Barnes. Big ups to John Barnes. We go from MS 331 over to Bronx Early College Academy for Teaching and Learning. We get there, and I'm the dean. I'm an ally. Then all of a sudden, I'm getting this email. You should apply for this program. And you know what? I wasn't going to apply for it, but I said, what the heck? Plus, I could prove John wrong. There's no way in the world they're going to want me when they see my grades from undergrad. So I went ahead and applied for the program, and I thought nothing of it. Then a few weeks later, I get an email saying, hey, we'd like you to come in for an interview. And I was like, these fools, man, I'm going to go in there, and they're going to be like, why did this guy even apply? So I went ahead. I applied. I went ahead to the interview. And the whole entire time, from the moment that's get to the interview to I went to the interview, I was telling everybody and their mother that Teachers College don't know what they're doing because they're going to have me come in there and interview for a spot at the Summer Principals Academy. SPA, So The day of the interview comes, and I meet with the founder and director of the program, Dr. Richardson, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this guy must be out of his mind, or whoever pushed my resume to him must be out of their mind. So we go in there, we're talking. He asked me some questions, and at some point in time, he asked me a question. I don't remember what the question was, but I just remember thinking to myself, okay, I gotta stop this charade. This is a farce. I'm not gonna besmirch. I'm not gonna allow myself to besmirch the reputation of Teachers College, Columbia University. So I tell him, listen, I don't remember what I said, but I think I said something along the lines of like, I shouldn't even be here. I'm just a dean. I don't have the instructional background that other people would have. I barely taught. I taught, but I didn't get the full breadth of 2 years of full-time teaching. I was teaching part-time, mostly deaning, and all these different things. So I gave him the whole reasons for why I should not be in this program. And he sat there graciously and listened to me, belittle myself, basically. They said to me, what you do is school culture. And it doesn't matter how great a school is, the best teachers in the world, the best programs and everything else. But if there isn't a culture to foster that learning and to create a space where teachers could do their jobs and students could do their jobs, that teaching and learning, then school doesn't happen. And he said, it sounds to me that you've had a pivotal role in making that happen in not just one school, but in 3 schools in a very small window of time. And no one had ever framed it like that for me. And I sat there and I was just kind of like, what just happened? Like, he literally told me what I've been doing and what my worth had been in those schools. And I sat there quietly, and whatever he said next just kind of like didn't even register until he said, so are you going to be requiring any scholarship points? I said to him, pardon me? He's like, are you going to need, financial support in the program? And I was like, what? And he's like, in the fall. I'm sorry, in the summer when you start this program, are you? And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, wait a minute, I'm in? And he was like, yes. And I was like, yes, I'm going to need some financial support. It's Columbia. It's kind of expensive. And he's like, okay. He wrote something down on his paper. He was like, listen, I look forward to having you in the summer. And we stood up. I shook his hand. And I walked out of his office. And listen, the look on my face was like, what just happened? And he patted me on the back, walked out the door. I shut the door behind me. And the secretary looked at me and was like, how did it go? And I was like, I think I got in. She was like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. And I was like, what just happened? I went down to my car. I called my mother. I called my mother. I was like, Mom, I think I got into Columbia. And my mother, being Nigerian and being Igbo, said, praise God, oh, God is good. And I was like, wait a minute, no, what just happened? And I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, we'll be attending the Summer Principals Academy. Am I going to be a principal? So, that summer 2009, I started at Teachers College, Columbia University, at SPA, the Summer Principals Academy. And I was done by the following fall of 2010. And that after I was done with that, that year of me being in the program, I was an admin intern. And I was pretty much functioning as an assistant principal, wearing the hat of the dean, assistant principal. I was supervising special education. I was supervising math and science. I spent a lot of time in the classroom because all of a sudden now I had to really accelerate my understanding of instruction in the classroom, what that looked like, sitting in classrooms and even teaching myself with the understanding that I'm going to have to lead this. I'm going to have to support teachers in this space. And my brain went to overdrive. I did observations with John, and he gave me feedback. And then through the program, I was just looking at school, every facet of the school building. And I remember just being like, man, it would have been so much easier if I had been doing some of this stuff in the beginning. But now I'm like, I wouldn't have changed it, because my superpower was my ability to really establish school culture. And then my training was understanding pedagogy and instruction in the classroom. So by the close of the winter of 2010, I was done with all my coursework for Columbia, and I was appointed officially assistant principal that February of 2011, February 2011. And so we're talking about from 2007 2011. Wow. So 2005. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So from the moment that I walked in to New York City schools as a teacher to when I became officially on paper an assistant principal was 6 years. 6 years. And it's funny. I'm just thinking back at it right now. I'm thinking to myself like, wow, that was an incredible journey. And I know people who've done it faster than not, But there are a lot of programs in the city back then that I know people who were assistant principal in 4 years. But one thing I would say is the difference between me and them is that a lot of people that I know, that I've met who became principals pretty quickly, they went from teaching in the classroom into a training program to learn about schools from teacher to principal, while I went through to teacher to assistant principal, while I went through, in my opinion, the boot camp of actually running, being responsible for a major part of a school discipline. Everything from suspensions to detentions to parental conferences to creating school codes and supporting teachers with classroom management and all those things I did from day one, and then continued to do so all the way through until I was appointed assistant principal. And by the time that came, I was ready. And it's funny because I think back to, if you remember from that 2 episodes ago, I told you about the assistant principal who became my principal at my first school, who became principal at the first school. He was never my principal because by the time he took the seat, I had left to another school. But he told me, next year, you're going to be back in the classroom because there's no way in the world you're going to become a school administrator without XYZ. And the path that he thought that was supposed to be for me was not for me. My path was very, very different. But my path was not so different that no one else could have gone through that path. It's just that I committed myself to the work. Like I was like, forget about law school. This is where I want to be. So by the time I was my 6th year, in the midst of my 6th year, I became an assistant principal, and that was my journey. And it was an incredible journey, And I'll tell you this: my best years in my career were those first 6 years, because it was so crazy. Think about it, 3 schools in 6 years, and from teacher dean to admin intern to assistant principal, all within that same window, and getting a degree from Columbia University Teachers College, and also being a Con Fellows ally. And so my resume just got bolstered in those 6 years. But again, it was hard work, but in all honesty, those 6 years defined the rest of my career. It defined the next 11 years, for a total of 17 years in New York City schools. And it made me the school leader that I am. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone who saw what I didn't see in myself then. So Yeah, so that's the story. That's the story. So, in closing, let me throw in some closing music here. Is that the right button right here? All right. So, in closing, what I want you to take away from this story is this: the work. You know, I didn't do this intentionally, but I needed to put the kind of work in that had people say, "I need you here with me," whether or not it was being a dean or being a teacher, whatever it is that you do. You gotta do it on such a high level that people see the work that you're doing. And not only that, you know, one thing I didn't do is because I didn't see it in myself yet, was really be able to say, this is what I want, you know. But I didn't have to say this is what I wanted because I was honestly putting all of myself into the work. So and when the time came, and I because I knew I had those gaps, I buckled in and went hard in understanding pedagogy and making sure that wasn't just a one-trick pony. And at the end of the day, here I am. You know, I did it. I did it in a short time, and it's not for everyone. You know, everyone must move through their path and through their journey. But remember, you got to put the work in, and you also have to be very clear what your objective is. But yeah, that's my story, and that's how I became an assistant principal. And in my next episode, we'll talk about how I went from assistant principal to principal. That's even a crazier story. So with that being said, thank you so much for your time today, and I'll see y'all soon, all right? Peace.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.